Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we explore the future and what this means for your leadership. We ask the big questions. What's happening on the horizon? What does this mean for us? And most importantly, what skills do I need now for leadership of the future? It's time to explore. Let's go.
Hello, it's Zoe, and welcome back to the show. Guess what? On Planet Human, I did a little bit of research for you, and the World Economic Forum has the Future of Jobs report out for 2023. And the top two most important skills for workers are, analytical thinking at number 1, creative thinking at number 2. I'm laughing because I'm like, So we need divergent thinking, which is the creative thinking, and convergent thinking, which is the analytical thinking. Yep, those are perennial must-need skills. And number 3, 4, and 5 were resilience, flexibility, and agility. Number 6, technology, literacy, and dependability. And then we had some soft skill or interpersonal skills, empathy, active listening, leadership, and social influence. Those were the top 10. Analytical and creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, agility, so some personal efficacy ones there. Then technical literacy, dependability, empathy, active listening, leadership, and social influence. I think they just shuffle around the deck chairs every year because those are always going to be in the top 10. Which one rises to the top, which one sinks to the bottom, doesn't matter. We all need those particular skills. So that's what we have in Planet Human. Keep being good thinkers and good people. On Planet Zoe, very exciting news. I have the first draft of Olympus Bound off to the editor, who's going to do a developmental edit. That's the first sequence of edits where he has a look at the story and goes, doesn't make sense here, or how about you reshuffle the sequences here, or maybe challenge your thinking about the story here. So Olympus Bound is off to the editor. That is the sequel to The Olympus Project, my first sci-fi novel. So all very exciting. Yes, indeedy. All right. So my question for you today is, what is fair when it comes to rewards at work? So my guest today is Chris Lautenslager, and he has an enormous well of experience in business and finance. He's been in financial institutions, working at global organizations for some 40 years. And through that, he has a very specific outlook on the purpose of business. He has written a book called The Prosperity Loop. And his focus on his website, getlooped.com, is all about creating shared prosperity so that business is in the business of sharing its prosperity. So we have an extensive and very fascinating look at how we build purpose-built organizations that include value creation for all. Very uplifting. So without further ado, here is Chris. All right. Well, all the way from fabulous Chicago, Illinois, where the people are nice, so I've been told. Welcome to the show, Chris Lautenslager.
Thank you, Zoe. I appreciate having me on your show Down Under.
I know. I love this part of the technology where we can reach across the ocean and continents to have wonderful conversations. And I'm very excited to have you on the show. I am thrilled about the whole idea of Prosperity Loop, the name of your book, with a fabulous title, A Wealth Creation Model for the Socially Conscious Leader, Their Teams and Communities, because this is all about business for purpose, business that can be profitable and good for humans and the world. So, big lead in. How did you actually get into this line of work where you're an author and you're talking about leadership and you're talking about business and you're talking about contribution?
Well, it's kind of circling the square for me. It is going back to my roots. My family was living in a family business. In fact, to give you a little background, my father, Kurt, had a successful small business, and he kind of started it by accident. He and his brother Ben were patching holes in Ben's driveway one day, and a neighbor sees him and says, "Hey, would you patch the holes in my driveway too?" Boom. B&C, Ben and Kurt Paving Company, was born. And I think a lot of small businesses are started that way, right at the very beginning. And growing up, anytime I wasn't going to class, my father would wake me up at 4:30 in the morning, Zoe, and drag me to the local diner. It was called Doris's Diner. And it's where all the local business owners started their day. We'd be drinking coffee, sitting around a big table. They'd all be talking about their families and the town. And here in Chicago, the local sports team are the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs. And during those days, they were consistently horrible. So it'd always be talking about how bad the Cubs were doing. And then it was off to work. And from the time I was a little boy, I did every job possible at that company. I started by managing the traffic on the roadsides. I'd shovel hot asphalt on hot summer Chicago days. I'd even get a chance to drive that big old huge steamroller.
Oh, that would have been fun.
It's actually really fun. Probably doesn't surprise you, but so many people walk by and are like, hey, can I drive that? No. No, you can't. It's like asking the Zamboni driver. You play hockey down under.
There is like a small little contingency that does play ice hockey here. Yeah.
Really? It's very big up here in the Midwest, in the ice and cold during the winter. Anyways, so I grew up in a small business. And, when my father passed, I was completely planning to be a member of our family business. And when he passed, my mom sold the business and it was pretty much starting all over. So I focused on my education and got my master's in finance and economics and went to work in the financial world. I actually started on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange as a floor trader, trading futures and options. I did that for 11 years.
That sounds horrible. I mean, how interesting.
It's not for everyone, but for a capitalist-minded young man in his 20s that was very athletic, it was fantastic.
Why do you say athletic? Because you had to run around a lot?
It's physical. You're standing in a pit, pushing and yelling and screaming and shouting and fighting for every single trade.
Oh my God. It really is like that. So it's not just made up TV stuff. It really is like that.
Oh no. It's very much like that.
Is it still like that?
Actually, floor trading doesn't exist anymore. It's all electronic. And one of the reasons that I went to grad school is I noticed that they were introducing new technology, and that technology was electronic trading. And I felt that that was the beginning of the end. And as it turned out, it was. So I received my education, and then I went to work for some of the premier global financial institutions in the world on Wall Street in New York City.
Wow, amazing. So you said you're an athletic, capitalist-minded guy, and leading towards eventually this production of this book, Prosperity Loop, and the work that you do now. Capitalism has done some great things in the world, and it's been accused of producing some really terrible results in the world in terms of its extractive approach of taking whatever we can out of the earth to make whatever we can to build businesses and make profit. Do you believe that capitalism has a future? Is it broken? Do we need to fix it?
Capitalism most certainly has a future. It's done more to advance civilization and the benefits to mankind than any other economic system in the world. I mean, people gravitate towards the exchange of goods and services. It's the nature of how things get done in many respects. With that said, even Adam Smith, who many consider to be the father of capitalism, warned against the potential abuses and manipulation of capitalism by what he termed the moneyed interests. So what can occur is that capitalism, when untethered and unmanaged or manipulated, can be taken advantage of. And that's when the very few can take advantage of the very many, or when the interests of the many aren't taken into consideration for the wealth creation of just a few. And that's when there's an exploitation of humans, of property, of resources, of society in general. And I believe that's what we're experiencing today. is that there's been a horrible manipulation of capitalism to the benefit of just a few and for the expense of the many. So I believe that there are solutions to this. And the solutions are not going to come from the government. They're not going to come from Apple. They're not going to come from Google. They're not going to come from ChatGPT. They're going to come from you and I. And small businesses in particular, I consider to be small businesses at the forefront of solutions for all of society. And the reason for that is that small businesses are about people. Small businesses are the direct interaction between buyers and sellers of goods and services on a humanistic basis. So it is reintroducing humanity into the business cycle that will save the world. It's not asking the state to make those decisions for us.
That's a big ask. I mean, I work with a lot of small businesses, and I know their day-to-day world is very consumed in dealing with the now. And at the moment, the challenges that leaders are facing in these enterprises are staff turnover, trying to recruit in this environment, trying to keep staff, how to deal with all the people stuff dynamics of keeping the team happy, dealing with entitlement, just sort of keeping the lights on, getting new clients, dealing with recession, rising interest rates. And then they're tasked with saving society. So it seems like a big challenge.
Well, actually, if the goal, like any big task, it needs to be broken down into manageable, palatable, positive steps. So let me give you an example. I mentioned that I did every job possible at my father's company. My favorite job was at the end of the job that we did. It was to go up to the client's front door, knock on the door in person, and say to the client, "Thank you for your business." Now, it seems simple enough, but it was the most wonderful exchange between him and I, or her and I. And it became my favorite part of the job, was to say, "Thank you very much for your business." That continuation of a relationship, that referral-oriented business, that connection to humanity is really the simple ask that I'm suggesting, is by focusing on and recognizing that your business is about dealing with people. It's about engaging with other human beings. All of the things that you talked about, Zoe, were operationally oriented in many respects. Or how do I increase efficiencies? How do I increase my profit margin? How do I reduce my expenses? I'd like to suggest that the focus should be, how do I enhance the value of the people that I'm working with? How do I create the best relationships possible with my customers, my vendors, and my community? And I promise you that by taking the people-oriented approach, your business has a much greater possibility of thriving. Another example, I have a very good friend. He's one of the founding partners of the largest private equity firm in the world. And I talked to him about this. Now, he's as much of a capitalist as you could possibly get. But he's the first to say that, yes, you need profits, but unless you have people, profits aren't going to come. Unless you take care of your customers, the profits will inevitably disappear. So, and if you're talking about hiring, gosh, we just went through a global pandemic. And I don't know about you. Actually, I do know about you, Zoe. I'm going to guess that this experience changed you in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. It's changed me. It's probably changed your listeners' businesses also. And it's most certainly changed their workforce. I talk to small business owners that are having this issue with hiring people. And when they tell me, and I hear this so often, I just need to wait for things to get back to normal. Things are never going to get back to, quote, normal. The world has changed. And you, Mr. Business Owner, need to change with it. What are you doing that makes people want to work for your firm? What are you doing that makes people want to stay at your firm? Growing up, I just wanted a check. I remember getting my first jobs, and it was, oh boy, I got my check on every other Friday. It was physical. I walked it over to the bank, which was right next door to where I was working. The tellers knew my name. They called me Mr. Lautenslager, and I had a sense of pride of cashing my check. It was a glorious experience. It's not the way it is anymore on so many different levels. I recently saw a poll by Deloitte, and it said that 77% of millennials. Now let's identify who millennials are. They're the people in the age group that were born between 1981 and 2000. Okay, that means they're 42 to 23-ish. Those are your customers. Those are your clients. Those are your vendors. Those are your workforce. 77% of that population group views having purpose in where they work as paramount to whether they go there or stay there. So if you're thinking that just giving your employees a 10% raise is going to incite them to be excited about your business, you're going to be disappointed. So if you're having a hard time hiring people, figure out what excites the people that you want to hire and why do they want to work at your firm. You have to do more.
You have to do more. And I think it comes back to, I believe, to your wealth creation model, which I'd like to talk a little bit more about. And that it's not just about profits to go back to the business owners. And I think this is a really important question, that you're asking. How can we enhance the value for the people that work for us and the relationships of all of our stakeholders, which are our customers and our suppliers and so on? It's a bit of a shift. And you said, the pandemic has changed us. And I think the pandemic has pushed us into really considering what our world view is and what our values are. And I've been talking about this in my keynotes as well, is that this worldview shift is pretty critical. There's been a leading edge since the 60s about thinking about business as a force for good in community, that this is really coming to the fore. And yet so many businesses are reluctant to actually get out of their business as usual. Like, we provide a service, people pay for it, and the business owners take home profits. So let's talk about the wealth creation model for the socially conscious leader, their teams and communities. What is the wealth creation model?
So I lay out 6 steps, and it dovetails beautifully into what we're talking about in building an environment in which employees want to come and work and stay at your firm. It starts with a common vision. Okay, why are we here? And again, if it's just to get a check, you're going to find it very difficult to conduct business as we move forward. The world has changed, and we need to change with it to be successful. And here's the great thing, Zoe. It's far more fun to be engaged in a world and changing with it than trying to fight a world that's changing and trying to stand against it. It's enjoyable to be engaged with your clients and your customers and your employees on how to make improvements to the world, how to make improvements. I personally like to focus on local community. You get to see hands-on results. I'm not saying that, dealing with global warming or climate change or food poverty aren't important issues, but I believe that you can get the most hands-on results and personal satisfaction as a business owner by making local contributions, by getting locally engaged, whether it's in the hospital or in the food bank or in the local park system. There's contributions that you and your team can make that will touch their hearts. Often, it's within your own workforce. That's why it's about engaging them and talking to them and having cooperation and collaboration, which is my second step. What is it that they want? How can they bring value added to the business? What's it about them that's special that can enhance your business? It's not just about KPIs. It's about the uniqueness of each and every human. Then it's about value creation. And this I'd like to talk about more than just increasing the value of your profit margin. It's about creating values within a work environment. So, there's this concept of culture within a work frame, within a workspace. Culture exists whether you want to acknowledge it or not. I know, as you were talking about, small business owners are very busy. They want to open the doors. They want to close the doors. They have their own family issues at heart also. They're busy, busy, busy. But your busy is your culture. Okay? It's important what you do on a day-by-day basis, on a person-by-person basis, that creates your culture. And your culture matters in regards to how your employees interact with your clients. Your culture, the communication style, all starts from the top. If you're abrupt and brusque and burly, what's the likelihood that your frontline customer service person is going to be warm and fuzzy? Probably pretty low. And who does your customer want to deal with? Someone who's brisk and burly, or someone who cares and has empathy for what their needs and desires are? And it doesn't matter if you're making and selling nuts and bolts, or if you're providing heartfelt social services. It's, again, I always come back to, it's about the people. Then circular communication. That's the fourth point that I have in regards to the wealth creation model. And what I mean by circular communication, I should have just said, you need to listen.
Good euphemism. Circular communication. Just use your ears more.
It helps to actually hear what someone's saying. If in your mind, someone's talking to you, and you're in your mind already thinking about what the response is going to be, that's a very good hint. You're not listening to that person. Okay? It really adds a lot of value to your relationships and to your business to hear and listen to what others are telling you. And then the last one is shared rewards. So, again, I'm a capitalist. Okay? I believe that people deserve to be rewarded for the risks that they take. But I also believe that we have a responsibility of taking care of each other. Okay? The minimum wage is a euphemism for a minimum life. Okay? Do you want to support a minimum life, or do you want to be responsible for creating value added? It's not just value added in the marketplace, it's value added in humanity. So being generous, and it doesn't always have to be about money. My own business. I have a small business. I have several employees. They're all virtual. But besides paying them, and this is a simple thing, I ask each one of them, what's a dream that we can work on together? What's a personal dream of yours that we can work on together to bring to fulfillment? And every time I have a monthly meeting with this person to talk about what's going, actually I have weekly meetings, but I have a monthly overall review. How are we doing on our personal dream? What steps have I contributed to help with this person to reach their personal dream. That person is going to stay at my company.
And the personal dream could be something completely unrelated to work, I'm guessing.
The one that I'm thinking of right now that I had a conversation with 2 days ago is she wants to own rental properties. She wants to create independent income streams, and she doesn't know how. I can help her with that. And guess what? That consistent little help, first of all, it's fun for me because I get to share something that I know about how to do that. I've had rental properties. I can help her with that. And being a mentor is a joyous experience. So it's not just helping her, it's helping me also. And then the last step is assessment and adjustment, making sure that things are going on track. And like an inventory for a company that has an inventory, like a annual assessment, what are we doing? What are we doing good? What are we doing bad? Quick thing about this, and a lot of productivity books are being written about this now. It's so many people have a tendency, well, I'm not doing as well on X. I need to focus more on X. I'm of the mindset of you need to delegate X because there's a reason why you're not doing well at it. You don't like it or you're not good at it. Find what you're doing well that you're a superstar in. Do that even more and better. Lean into your strength and delegate the stuff that makes work a drag for you.
That's always been a very useful frame. Absolutely. I wanted to ask a little bit, Chris, about the rewards and metrics, because this is something that in a capitalist environment can befuddle people. And what's the right thing to do? So, for example, I'm in conversation with a small organization right now, and the owners are like frustrated because they provide all these perks for their team. So they provide lunches, a fruit bowl, retreats, Thursday night drinks. And yet some of the employees are like, you need to pay me more. And they're like, what else, what are we missing here? And I think, perks are different than shared rewards, I believe. So I'm curious about, let's talk about that. So shared rewards. And so the conversation with the business owners came back to, well, what do we do? Do we just pay everyone the same? And I'm like, that doesn't feel quite right. And they're like, what about as business owners? Should we not be entitled to have the car parking space? And should we not be entitled to have the business pay for our special wine on a Thursday night that's just for us, the business owners? Should we allow everyone to have that? So I wonder if you could speak a little bit to what goes into choosing rewards and shared rewards that's a helpful frame for business owners.
It comes back to several of the things that I had talked about. Let's start with listening. So these are great perks in your mind. And most likely the business owner who has created these perks is like, this is great. We get to do wine on Thursday nights. We do this, we do that. I'm doing a really great job because I believe that these are important. And they probably are. They sound wonderful. But what do your employees think? If you actually ask them what's important to them, maybe it is more money. It's a personal thing in many respects. The parking space, I actually, again, I like rewarding myself for doing well. I also like rewarding others and making them feel special for doing well too. So does someone get to have the parking space for a week for, being employee of the month? If that's something that somebody complains about for you or expresses a desire for, then make it part of what is important to them. My sense in regards to the parking space is that sounds like a guilt thing to me.
I don't think it's not a guilt thing. Like to be fair to the business owners I do talk about with this, it's not a guilt. It's a genuine question. And the conversation that you mentioned earlier, like we as capitalists, we reward risk. And the people who carry the most risk in a business is the business owner, because they pump in their capital and their sweat equity into it. And if things go pear-shaped, they carry the responsibility for that. So what is appropriate reward for that risk? And I think that this is a big conversation in the zeitgeist as well, because it's like, well, do we pay CEOs 100 times more than their employees? Is that appropriate reward for the risk that they take as for that position? So I think it's a genuine question. Like,
by the way, let me answer that one specifically. No.
Okay. We don't pay them 100 times. 100 times is not appropriate. Okay.
Well, again, I'll go back to capitalism has been manipulated in today's world when 1% of the population owns 50% of the world's wealth. There's a problem associated with that. When an individual, Ted Turner, owns 2 million acres of property here in the United States, which is more property than 2 states combined, Rhode Island and Delaware, I think there's been a manipulation or a maladjustment of the system. Now, I'm not saying we go and appropriate and take that property away from Ted. Ted played by the rules. Ted owns that land. But who shapes the rules? And what are the rules? How are they designed? And how do they provide fair return to all participants?
I think that's at the center of it, right? Fair return to all. So both those 2 points are really critical. Fair, what is fair? Return to all participants. And I think that's sort of central to what does that actually mean and how do we work on that? And if I'm hearing you correctly, it is the big answer to both those questions. What's fair and what's fair is it depends. It depends on what the individuals want and what's important to them. Did I translate that?
In some respects.
Okay. Yep.
In some respects, you're right, Zoe. And this is my message to small business owners that I work with and that I lecture with. If you want to squeeze every dime possible out of your company, you can. You have that right. I'm not a believer in having the government dictate broad-based rules on how much wealth someone can own. I think there should be a graduated income tax that people that make more or own more should pay more. With that said, life is more rewarding for yourself and for others. Your business will be more successful in the sharing of the contributions that people make than in trying to keep them all yourself. I deal with some extraordinarily wealthy people, and I can't tell you how miserable so many of them are. So does it really make that much of a difference in regards to your net wealth? Would you be willing to give up 20% of that if you were a happier human being? Well, actually, I know I have, plus, but that was my choice, and I'll never look back on it.
So a lot of this is digging into really, again, worldview and values. What's meaningful and important.
It's about values.
It is, absolutely.
It's about values. So change, that's why I like working with small private businesses, because they can change. They can have an impact. And what I find is, and what my desire is to change enough small businesses, to change the mentality and culture within small businesses that, of course, you would want to be inclusive with your team. I can't imagine being focused strictly on my own personal self-care or self-promotion. It becomes culturally appropriate to care for others. You know, I grew up in the prime of my career in what people called the decade of greed during the 80s. There was a movie that starred Michael Douglas. He played an investment banker called Gordon Gekko. And he has this iconic speech about greed being good. And the fundamental idea, the concept behind it is that the individual capitalistic profit incentive decisions made by individuals will enhance the efficiencies of and flow of goods and services. Okay. But greed isn't good. Greed has consequences. Greed creates the type of animosity, the type of strife, the type of hardship that we're seeing in society today. So do you want your children? Do you want your grandchildren? Do you want your neighbors to be at each other's throats, fighting over influence, fighting over what car they have? No, it's by changing the inner tone. It's by recognizing the values that we have, that are principles that have been passed down for thousands of years. The concept of having generosity, of caring for our fellow man, woman, person, these aren't new ideas. The reason that they've been passed down through thousands of years is because they work. The reason why the Greeks and the Romans and free societies and democracies from the beginning of antiquity have embraced these principles is because of the contributions that they make to the human soul.
That's beautiful. I'm feeling very uplifted now. It's like, yes, let's bring out the best in humanity, and we can do it. And I think it's a very helpful message. Chris, are you ready for the Fast Five?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay, number one. What is the future technology you most want right now?
You know, who'd have thought that in high school, the most important skill that I should have learned was typing. And I didn't learn it then, and I still don't know it now. I look forward to technology, which is actually technology that I use today, which is all voice activated, in which I don't have to type anymore. So there's Loom, there's Voxer, there's all these tools that are now available in which we can communicate via voice instead of via type. And that's super helpful.
It is super helpful. And for writing, it's super fast as well. I can
It
write
makes
500
such
words
a difference.
vocally. Yeah.
I like editing on type, but I much prefer to have an outline and then speak and allow my thoughts to process.
Wonderful. Same. Okay, number two. What's the best tip you ever got for leadership?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Considering other human beings with the same value that you consider yourself is a great rule of life.
It is a great rule of life, and I think you can navigate life, a lot of the perils in life, well with that one.
And business. And I'll keep stressing this. Doing well to others, to people, caring for people is good business. It will increase not only your profitability, it will increase your personal pleasure of life and your business. Fact.
Yep. Doing right means doing well. I agree with that. All right, number three. What's one problem at work you'd love to wave a magic wand and have be fixed right now?
Fatigue. People are stressed. People are overworked. You know, I used to say when I retired many years ago, I would say I'm doing the work of 3. Now people are doing the work of 5. And we need to recognize that these are not machines. Our job is not to squeeze every single minuscule iota of productivity out of a person is not good business. The whole concept of Amazon warehouses and them wearing productivity watches and being monitored for literally every second of their work, I think is inhumane.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. That's what we have robots for, not humans.
You know, and people are like, well, then we're going to get robots. And for many jobs, robots are a better approach. But for other jobs that people can be trained for, try and have a robot fix your car. Even today's cars. It doesn't happen. But try and find a robot that can do your plumbing. I dream of having a good plumber. And actually, I have a great plumber. So I feel very fortunate. But if you want a good job, get a skill. You don't need to work at a warehouse and be a robot. It's really to your advantage to get skilled.
Okay. Number 4, thumbs up or thumbs down? Who's a leader that's doing something right or a leader that's doing something wrong?
So I like going local. There's a businessman. His name's Brian Buffini & Co. They're based in San Diego. He's a friend of mine. I'm a client of his. I believe in his services. He provides business training services, individual training services on increasing your productivity, increasing your business. For me, what I really love about his business is that he focuses on how to grow your business through referral. Okay? So I'll tell you a quick story, Zoe. Do we have time for a quick story?
Yep, we do.
Okay. So people love technology. People love, placing advertising on Google and Facebook and using ChatGPT and spending all this time on how to enhance their productivity by using technology. My father, back in 1960, focused on his latest versions of technology too. He would spend hours with his sales rep going over the best way to create maximum advertising dollar return in the yellow pages. Okay. But the reality is 80% of his business, new and concurrent, came from referrals. And that's the way it is today also. Small business owners, 83% say that the vast majority of their business comes from referrals. So what I love about Brian is he focuses on people, the value of people, and the value of connections between people. So Buffini & Co. I highly encourage you to look them up.
Fantastic. Thank you. I love personal recommendations of people who are, out of the global limelight who are doing great things. All right. Question number 5. What is your favorite leadership book or podcast that you'd like to recommend?
Well, outside of yours, Zoe, and I do listen to your podcast, Well Done, Making a Contribution to the World. I listen to Ed Milet. He has a podcast. He recently wrote a book, The Power of One. I think it's a great book. It focuses on taking responsibility for your actions and doing the one extra thing to be successful.
What's his last name? Ed
Milet, Mylett.
Okay, Ed Milet. Power of One. Fantastic. Okay, and that was the Fast 5.
That was fun.
The Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast is proudly sponsored by the Amplifiers Academy. It is an online self-paced leadership development program that you can join at any time and progress at your pace. There are very short video lessons, great checklists and resources and recommendations and book summaries, all there to help boost your leadership thinking and abilities. We focus on leading strategy, leading culture, leading change, and leading performance. So if you want a go-to resource that can help boost your strategic abilities immediately, check us out, Amplifiers Academy, on the zoerouth.com website. See you there. Well, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap it up. Where can people find out more about you and the Prosperity Loop? So
they can go to my website, www.get-looped.com. That's get-looped.com. And they can get my book on any of the major websites or at your local bookstore. It's called The Prosperity Loop, or you can order it online at my website also. Okay. Oh, I like to support independent authorship, which is great. Chris, this has been really fabulous and uplifting. I love business as a force for good, and that if we come back to fundamentals of being good humans and the principle of generosity, and that it is a reinforcing positive loop, then we will do well by doing good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Zoe. It was really a pleasure. That was a lovely interview. I really felt uplifted by what Chris had to say about the power of business. And it really inspired me to have a look at my business and think about how I can do more and really engage in my community. So I'm feeling inspired, which is awesome. So your takeaway, take action for this week, I think there's 2. Ask people what they want.
and what their dreams are. I think that was a really powerful one, is finding out what your team members want in terms of perks, benefits, rewards, and also what their dreams are. So it doesn't always have to be a tangible thing that you can assist with. You can maybe assist with their dreams, which would be cool. And the second takeaway or take action is start to think about you and your business, your organization, or you individually. What problem could you help solve locally? And just make the first baby step inquiry about that. Nudge you into being more of a ripple in the pond. So your tip of the week is going to come from my novel, The Olympus Project. And as Tim was talking about the impact of business, I pulled out Olympus Project, and I've got this quote on page 29 in chapter 7 by Maya Garcia, who is one of the co-founders of Gaia Enterprises. And she says, "The best world designers are the ones who live fully self-expressed. In their work, there are no hidden corners, no sharp edges, only beauty and truth." And if you take out the word world designers and insert leader, we've got that too. The best leaders are the ones who live fully self-expressed. In their work, there are no hidden corners, no sharp edges, only beauty and truth. And that's the sense I got from Chris and his work and his encouragement of the people around us. And that's what I want for you too. I would love for you to be fully self-expressed and that you live fully in your values and are making a contribution out of generosity and purpose to the world around you. That's what I want for myself too. So that is my tip of the week from The Olympus Project. Coming up next on the show, we've got a solo-sode next week. We are changing into our next quarter's theme, which is lead performance, with a particular focus on constructive and collaborative conflict. I know that's always a hot topic for leaders. How do we actually deal with the little sparky bits in ourselves and our teams when it comes to when people bump elbows with each other at work? So how can we make that constructive and collaborative instead? And that friction can actually lead to great creativity. So that's what we'll be exploring in next week's episode, in the solo-sode, and will be our theme for the following season. So your call to action, pay it forward. Take something that you've heard or listened to on the show and share it with someone. Share an idea, an observation, even if it's just repeating a story. That would be fantastic. In the meantime, live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast. To find out more about leadership of the future or to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.